Your environment make you feel like you was born crazy. Always felt different, illuminated every day for being diligent. I'm just a stranger in the strange land visiting. Famine of the word, a lack of food for thought. Avoiding these devils and these fiery darts. Be a doer of the word, I call it applied knowledge. Hearts waxing cold, stone solid. We the precious gold, yeah, the law should shine. Deeply rooted cause his words is so divine. Congregation of the dead, my people walking blind. Gotta pull it down, I can't play around. Cause your life could be confiscated. Do the work, no contemplating. What you do on the frequent becomes your frequency. The one I hear, I never knew you, please remember me. The one I hear, I never knew you, please remember me. We came too far to hold us down. We them lost tribes that been found. Gotta be a lion in a world full of wolves. Gotta count the joy when it ain't no good. We came too far to hold us down. We them lost tribes that been found. Gotta be a lion in a world full of wolves. Gotta count the joy when it ain't no good. Keep the thoughts of a priest. Keep enduring in the belly of the beast. Warrior minded, but first seek peace. Have it like a faith, like a city under siege. If you ever need a reason, just breathe. In the valley of the dry bones, build your anatomy. This place gon' burn like calories. Trying to hit the right keys to the rhythm of my life. You get a hold of wisdom, better hold it tight. We the children of the light, yeah. My race not a color, I'm an Israelite. My race not a color, I'm an Israelite. Came too far to hold us down. We them lost tribes that been found. Gotta be a lion in a world full of wolves. Gotta count the joy when it ain't no good. We came too far to hold us down. We them lost tribes that been found. Gotta be a lion in a world full of wolves. Gotta count the joy when it ain't no good. Ten toes down, gotta hold my pivot. What is yours, gotta go and get it. Mission getting blurry, gotta hold your vision. The world got you slowly, gotta keep on living. Spirit is upon me, I can't fight the feeling. Much is required when the knowledge given. Send my prayers up through the ceiling. Mysteries unfolded and it's so revealing. Them losses get you closer to the winds, like a shovel dig within. Fall short, spin again. Past traumas make amends. We diamonds out the rough, polished treasures. Make sure my foundation always measured. Life can break a man, wrestling with his thoughts, standing firm with a warrior's heart. I've been up, I've been down, found peace in the lost and found. Where I'm from ain't no safe and sound. Taking leaps and bounds, breaking barriers. Holy Spirit carry us, enduring, never letting up. Trials and tribulation, what we facing. Serving the YHWH is my occupation. Observation, no more contemplating. Lately I've been sparring with my patience. Seek the Father in the darkest times. Breaking these cycles, raising these sons. Stand up, never run, cause this knowledge weigh heavy like a ton. We out the mud. 10 toes down, gotta hold my pivot. What is yours, gotta go and get it. Mission getting blurry, gotta hold your vision. The world got you slowly, gotta keep on living. Spirit is upon me, I can't fight the feeling. Much is required when that knowledge given. Send my prayers up through the ceiling. Mysteries unfolding and it's so revealing. Seeing your mother's pain leave a little trauma. Where I'm from, had to hide your tears. Face your fears, no father here. Who gon' guide you here? Show your children that it do exist. Got them on the path, try to avoid the slits. I can forgive, but I can't forget. Quantum leaves, gotta take the risk. passionate of the battle. My guards up. I'm stepping in my prime, transform like Optimus, elevate to another consciousness, moving with some confidence. I'm from a place where they speak with their hands and they talk with their feet. Don't suffer in silence, reach out and speak. 10 toes down, gotta hold my pivot. What is yours, gotta go and get it. Mission getting blurry, gotta hold your vision. The world dying slowly, gotta keep on living. Spirit is upon me, I can't fight the feeling. Much is required when that knowledge given. Send my prayers up through the ceiling. Mysteries unfolding and it's so revealing. Mysteries unfolding and it's so revealing. Mysteries unfolding and it's so revealing. Yeah. Yeah. When you see some light, that's a breakthrough. Concrete jungle, it's a damn zoo. Eyes wide, while they live on snooze. I hope in what you touch, impact some souls. Picture perfect, nigga, like a centerfold. I'm all about my bread, that's the dinner roll. Do it on my lonely, you can send the word. I remember drinking until my speech was slurred. But karma is the bitch, you better treat it right. It's power in these thoughts, she gave me mic. But this your life, nigga roll the dice. Eviction notice, try not to notice. But through your ups and downs, trying to find your purpose. Girded in this truth, blocking evil forces. Good intentions, create your invention. No huddle, fourth and inches. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on your way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. Since the snotty nose, I've been kind of bold. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on my way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. But since the snotty nose, I've been kind of bold. You headed to them streets, trying to fill the void. Trying to box with God, trying to win our floor. All these traps, gotta count the joy. I lift my voice up like a trumpet though. Wash away these sins and these transgressions. Change your outlook, that's your only weapon. But we the black jewels, these is mental jewels. Trying to set a pace while they drive on cruise. Can't trust they actions, they intent is cruel. I'm from a sunny place where it's shady people. Erase your history and they say we equal. Do your all in this world, they make you feeble. Built these corporations, look how they treat you. Get up on your grind, I'm thinking ownership. I know your past mistakes equate to something better. He give visions to the blind, Helen Keller. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on your way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. Since the snotty nose, I've been kind of bold. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on my way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. But since the snotty nose, I've been kind of bold.
I'm not coming in peace. I'm coming with a sword. And we are gonna come with fire, man. That's what's coming to this place. Fire.
That's not happening about the various slave trades that established everyone else's economy.
This devil knows he has but a short time and he's shaking in his boots.
And this place has done evil that you can't imagine. And it is not just this place.
Because we in the midst of darkness. Right? So
If you eat consciously enough, you'll be aware of every single thing you put inside yourself.
Hey. Shalom to everyone. Shalom to those coming in. All right. Good sister Idal's in the building. Shalom, sister Laziah. Amram. Okay. All right, so all of you see the title to the class, the Julian calendar in the Roman Republic. This class is going to be a continuation of the Lunar Sabbath series. We will be continuing to begin to understand the history of how calendars came about within the world, the establishment of them and their origins, where they came from, how they're still in use today. We've covered the first class with the Roman Empire going back to the 8th to the 7th century BC with Roman king Numa Pompilius establishing the old ancient Roman calendar and its origins, adding in the months of January and February. And then we had gone through the slideshow of presenting about how the months got their names after Roman deities and also relation to Greek goddesses, their counterparts as well and equivalents. And then also on behalf of that fact of the months and how they got moved out of their ordinary positions, beginning with the numerical months, September, October, November, December. And now we have the calendar we do today. So before there was the Gregorian calendar implemented and institutionalized and put throughout the world in 1582, there was the Julian calendar, which was its previous, counterpart that was implemented roughly almost 1600 years prior within the ancient world. The Roman Empire was in, I'm not going to say apex, but it was in its prominence, and it was the established empire throughout the world after the Greek, the Seleucids in the period of the Maccabees were eventually eradicated and wiped out, and we did claim independence. You had the Hasmonean dynasty that was established by Simon Maccabeus, and then you have the Maccabees afterwards. The Maccabean dynasty eventually falls out, and the Roman occupation begins, to where the Roman Empire then begins to rule over the world. So to explain it in that kind of procession, the Roman Empire rules over the world at this current point that we're going to be going into tonight, and with the implementation of what's known as the Julian calendar. So with that being said, it's important that we understand and know where all of this comes from, its origins, and most importantly, within this class that we're going to see and understand how the Gregorian calendar is just a more modernized 2.0 version of what the Julian calendar, its previous counterpart, was, again, roughly 1600 years prior. The Roman Empire is over the world at this point, and it is the fourth kingdom, i.e. the fourth beast that the book of Daniel talks about. So that's what we'll be getting into tonight. This is the second class in this series so far. I want to break down the history concisely and precisely and chronologically. That way we're able to follow up with the timeline accordingly of how the calendars and the times evolved, about how we use them, we see unfolding out, and we begin to understand about why so much changes have occurred. So Apayak, if you could pull up the presentation. Sir, full slideshow presentation. Go ahead whenever you're ready. All right, so all of you see here, Julius Caesar in the Julian calendar. Take notes, pay attention, and yes, this will be sent out after class. I hope this is in PowerPoint format. Okay, it is. All right, next slide. Let's begin. All right, so his full name is Gaius Julius Caesar. With the dates now with the calendar, they've been accurate enough to give the state of events of when he was precisely born. He was born July 12th, 100 BC, living until March 15th, 44 BC, when was a Roman general and statesman. He was a dictator from 49 BC until his death and assassination in 44 BC. He proclaimed himself dictator only for his rule to last less than 1 year, and was betrayed by his own inner circle. Caesar's death has led to many events that much led to the fall of the Roman Republic and paved the way for the establishment of what became the Roman Empire. While he was alive, he made many social and governmental reformations, which included the creation of the Julian calendar. If all of you remember when we were going into the months, remember that his nephew Augustus had the month of July, which originally was March, April, May, June, July, the 5th month of the year, and August, which was originally the 6th month of the year, before remembering that January and February were installed and implemented into the calendar. July was the 5th month of the year and was given the name of being so because of it being named after Julius Caesar, and August coming and being named from Augustus. So July and August both come from their names. Next slide. That's something important to remember. The Julian calendar, it being implemented, his nephew had made some slight modifications and changes to it after his death. All right, so the Julian calendar was introduced by Julius Caesar in 45 to 44 BCE and replaced the old Roman calendar, previously in place by the old Roman ruler Numa Pompilius. That was the old king that had between the 8th and 7th century BC, remembering again, that had revised the old Roman calendar. The older Roman calendar was a complicated reformed lunar calendar based on the phases of the moon. I'm going to repeat that. The older Roman calendar was a complicated reformed lunar calendar based on the phases of the moon. To fit the times more concisely, Julius consulted the Alexandrian astronomer named Sosigenes, and created a more regulated civil calendar, a solar calendar based on Earth's revolutions around the sun. If any of you remember Yahweh's classes with the series that he was doing, a lot of you should remember about Alexandria over in Egypt. Those of you that know. So again, Julius consulted the Alexandrian astronomer named Sosigenes and created a more regulated civil calendar, which was a solar calendar based on Earth's revolutions around the sun. Which means what? The lunar calendar that Numa Pompilius, centuries before and prior of what he had in place, eventually was revised, came out of use, and now this new solar calendar was made in the 1st century BC by Julius Caesar. Next slide. These are some additional side notes. The Julian calendar leap years. A common leap year in the Julian calendar consisted of 365 days divided into 12 months, as it was a solar dominant calendar. Remember, based on the revolutions of the Earth around the sun. In this calendar, every 4 years equals a leap year, with a leap year day added into the month of February. The month was, remember, added into the old Roman calendar. Due to miscalculations within the calendar of the leap years, supposed to be counted every 4 years, and after Caesar's death, the calculations being mishandled, this led to future problems for the nations down the road that also took on and had the Julian calendar implemented within their own systems. And these are all the systems, these are all the nations that the Roman Empire had under their control. February 29th is the day for when the leap year occurs, but there was at one point in history a February 30th. So not just February having 29 days within a month, February at one point in time, as we're about to get into, actually at 30 days. Next slide. Questions. Done said no test review. The test review, I'm going to announce and speak on that at the end of class. Shalom Yashar, Shalom the brother Ganan. Alexander Caesar Borgia was no did. No, absolutely they were. Yeah, they absolutely were. All right. February 30th. The nation of Sweden added February 30th to its calendar in 1712, following an earlier calendar era. The Soviet Union also observed February 30th in 1930 and 1931, and an attempt to cut the work week from 7 days to 5 and introduced 30-day months for the year, which means 360 days rather than 365 days. In 1700, Sweden, including Finland at the time, planned to convert from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. In 1700, which was a leap year, the Julian calendar was not a leap year in Sweden, meaning that it was miscalculated on their behalf. February 30th, 1712 came into existence in Sweden when the Julian calendar was restored and 2 leap days were added that year. So this happening within this point in this time period of history, I want to help show the miscalculations and the errors that when they made this calendar based upon the revolutions of Earth around the sun and it being a solar dominant calendar, the mistakes that they've made to the point where a leap year being added and then being miscalculated and mishandled would have February at this point in time, this is over, 400 years ago, that they add a whole nother day to the month of February to where it's February 30th instead of the 29th. So rather, when these nations are off and miscalculating to the point with the conversions and switching between these calendars, February 30th came into being by these two nations, Russia and Sweden. And you can clearly and evidently see why basing your calendar and using the solar dominant fashion of it leads to the mistakes that it has caused, right? So I want to emphasize that at this point in time, February 30th came into being because of how they mishandled the the calendar and are not even able to keep up with it to the point where 2 leap days have to be added. And February 30th, 400 years ago, came into existence. I want to also note at the bottom, the Gregorian calendar was institutionalized and created in 1582 during slavery. European nations not immediately switched over to implement it. Some nations took decades and centuries to do so. So when that happened, not all nations immediately took on the Gregorian calendar and, how can I say, reformalized and modified their own nations as such when it first came out in 1582. Next slide. Additional facts. The Julian calendar is 13 days behind the Gregorian calendar. It's number one. The Julian calendar was the most predominant calendar in use for roughly 1,600 years. The calendar, like the Gregorian calendar, is man-made and not biblically oriented. It is predicated upon by the solar luminary being the sun. We at the organization in school of Gadal, Gabaryam hold to the lunar Sabbath doctrine. When the Gregorian calendar came into effect in 1582, several nations waited decades and even centuries to make the calendar changeover. Last note, Saudi Arabia switched from its lunar-based Hijri calendar since its founding in 1932 to the Gregorian calendar in 2016. The last nation on earth that had a lunar-based calendar, interestingly enough, switched over to the Gregorian calendar over 8 years ago. So these are the additional facts, and this was the last slide to the slideshow. In presenting this, I want everyone to understand the origin and roots of where all this begins, and emphasize to help all of you know to understand how important it is to realize that the intertwining and the degradation and ignorance of our ways, laws, statutes, and customs, and taking on these barbaric idolatry-related customs that the heathen follow. We need to understand these things and where they come from. It's important that, matter of fact, let me use the first point, right? The Julian calendar is 13 days behind. The date today is October 2nd, which means in the Julian calendar, the date in the Julian calendar is September 19th. So if the date today in the Gregorian calendar is October 2nd, and the Julian calendar is September 19th. When it says 13 days behind, roughly about a period of 2 weeks, that's what it means, and that's what it's talking about. And there definitely is confusion and madness. All right, AHLAHAYANAWA, let's get rid of the slideshow. Can you pull up the picture of the Julian calendar I sent you? That way we get a visual of it. Struggling with the Julian calendar. Question, does that mean, based on the correct calendar, that we are older than what the Gregorian calendar translates? No, what do you mean by that, Al?
No. Because even with this calendar, your birth has a date. Your age is governed by the timeline we live on now, so that wouldn't make it.
Well, if Kaz answered your question, I want to be sure you're good. The Gregorian calendar was back in 1582, so roughly it's, I don't think any more than 400 years old. All right, so all of you see this picture of the Julian calendar here. I'm going to explain it. So they have day 1, day 2, all on the side, and then you see it all the way on the right side. So the total in number should add up to 365. So you see where January starts at 1, 2, and then it goes down. AHLAHAYANAWA, if you could scroll down. So all it's doing is going up to 365, as you see all the way on the right-hand side, 365 at the bottom. That's the month of December, and that's the amount of days December has, 31. That's why the 31 and the 1 to 31 is on the left-hand side and the right-hand side to let you know how much days are in the month. So January, the first column would have 31. February 28. You have March 31. you have April 30, May 31, June 30, July 31, August 31, September 30, October, the month we're in now, 31, November 30, and then you have December 31. So throughout the Julian calendar procession, it's supposed to amount to add up to 365 days. So this is what the Julian calendar looks like in its correlation and calculation with the days and months of the year.
What made them choose which months have 30, 31, 28?
They decided to just, I guess, verify it based on the importance of the certain months, especially July and August having 31 because it's named after Julius and Augustus Caesar. January, the first month of the year, most important. March, the beginning of the new year, would definitely have significance and importance, the beginning of spring. You have May, the goddess Maya.
Yeah, but what made them want to steal from February to accommodate everybody else's special needs?
The winter months were longer. The only thing I could really say is that in their calculation of it, maybe to get in order and get it right for spring with the agriculture, I'm not sure if they would want a longer winter pertaining to December to the January period, because they definitely know February corresponding to March being the 12th year, which for us would be the month of the dark. They probably would want to shorten it to get outside and maybe see when they would have to continue work, would be my only guesstimation from that, because this is why he added it into the calendar, but yet the days are so short when it comes to February.
All right.
So that's a visual representation of what the Julian calendar looks like. And again, it is a solar dominant based calendar. So now what we're going to do, Apaya, can you pull up the link for the crystal links? Baba Kushar, we're going to get more understanding on the Julian calendar. I'm going to show more visuals of the calendar they had previously and prior in use to the Julian calendar. All right, this article is titled Ancient Roman Calendars. And this is called Fasti Antiates Maioris. It said the painting of the Roman calendar about 60 BC before the Julian reform. I'm going to show a visual in color of what this is so that all of you can see and understand it better. But I'm going to read down at the bottom. It says, the Roman calendar changed its form several times in the time between the foundation of Rome and the fall of the Roman Empire. This article generally discusses the early Roman or pre-Julian calendars. The calendar used after 46 BC is discussed under the Julian calendar. In order to keep the calendar year roughly aligned with the solar year, remember, because now it's based upon the revolutions of the Earth around the sun, it's no longer a lunar-based calendar that it used to be, was added, it says a leap month of 27 days, the mensis intercalaris, sometimes also known as Mercedonius or Mercedinus, was added from time to time at the end of February, which shortened to 23 or 24 days. The resulting year was either 377 or 378 days long. So mind you, we did just read that the solar calendar year is supposed to consist of 365 days. But yet before that, in 60 BC, roughly 16 years prior to the implementation of the Julian calendar, it was 377 and 378. I want all of you to note and see the inconsistency with the calendar so that everyone gets and understands why we have a lunar-based calendar based upon the predications of the moon and how inconsistent it is and the reformations and modifications they have to keep making in order for everything to align to the best of its ability, because a solar predominant calendar is not perfect. And excuse me to add to that, is not more perfect or more fitting than the lunar calendar. All right, so it says the decision to insert the intercalary month in its placement was the responsibility of the Pontifex Maximus. On average, that's the leader or the head of the state, which was Julius Caesar at the time. On average, this happened rough in alternate years. The system of aligning the year through intercalary months broke down at least twice. The first time was during and after the Second Punic War. It led to the reform of Lex Acilia in 191 BC. The details of this reform are unclear, but it appears to have successfully regulated intercalation over a century. So what does this mean? It just means that they've added in days and they've had to take away some so that everything within their system fits perfectly to the best of its ability. We know that according to the lunar calendar-based calendar that we keep at this school and organization, the high holy days are determined by the new moon, and the number of whatever month it is, as it is the new moon that just ended prior to the sundown settling in, was the new moon for this month, which is the 8th month. We're in the month of October. Oct means 8. We're in the 8th month of the year. So with that being said, so that we understand it accordingly, they had to take days away and they had to add days in, whereas the lunar calendar is just based upon when the new moon falls, whatever number that new moon is, to give you determination of that month that it is throughout the year, and following up accordingly with the calendar that we have, and the high holy days fall whenever the Lord has commanded us and given us, or holy days such as Purim or a feast of dedication have been implemented and made by Israelites, fall within the calendar for us to keep. All right. Apayak, skip down to days of the week. Sorry, I'm just reading off of it. It says the Roman Republic, like the Etruscans, used a market week of 8 days, marked as A to H in the calendar. So originally there was no Saturday, Sunday, Monday, so on and so forth. It was just the months of the year that had the paganistic Roman deity names to them and the numerical months, and that was it. So before that came into being, it was marked as A to H in the calendar. A market was held on the 8th day. For the Romans who counted inclusively, this was every 9th day, hence the market became called Nundine. Since the length of the year was not a multiple of 8 days, the letter for the market day, known as Nundine letter, changed every year. For example, if the current letter for the market days was A, and the year was 355 days long, then the letter for the next year would be F. The market cycle was a fundamental rhythm of daily life, and the market day was that day that country people would come to the city. All right, I'm going to skip down because the market cycle was absolutely fixed at 8 days under the Republic. Information about the dates of market days is one of the most important tools we have for working out the Julian equivalent of a Roman date in the pre-Julian calendar. In the early empire, the Roman market day was occasionally changed. The details of this are not clear, but one likely explanation is that it would be moved by 1 day if it fell on the same day as the festival of Regifugium, an event that would occur every other Julian leap year. When this happened, the market day would be moved to the next day, which was a bisextile or leap day. The modern 7-day week came into use during the early imperial period, when the Roman Empire was conquering and taking over the world. After the Julian calendar came into effect, apparently stimulated by immigration from the Roman East, because predominantly Shemitic peoples did not keep a solar-based calendar, i.e. Israelites, Assyrians, Aramaeans, Babylonians, even the other distant Near East peoples did not keep solar-based calendars. They kept lunar calendars, if not and or both. Apparently stimulated by immigration from the Roman East. Remember, they were conquering peoples and also displacing them. For a while, it has coexisted alongside the 8-day Nundinal cycle and fastly are known, which show both cycles. It was finally given status by Constantine in 321 AD. The days of the week were dedicated to the 7 planets. They were, note the similarities of some of the days with French and Spanish and other Romance languages. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And this is pronouncing it in Latin. You have Dies Solis, day of the sun, Dies Lunae, day of the moon, Dies Martis, day of Mars, Dies Mercury, day of Mercury, Dies Iovis, day of Jupiter, Dies Veneris, day of Venus, Dies Saturnae, day of Saturn. So, with the implementation of this being and coming into being, this is where all of this originated from, and this is where all of it comes from, with its foundations and origins. So now that all of you can see within this article about how this came into being and what were the origins of this in the first place, I'm going to show the picture of what this 8-day week looked like in their own Roman calendar. What determined the way they kept the leap year? So they realized that they realized every year time is forwarded and time changes, GANAN. So what they would have to do is they would have to add an extra day into the year in order for the calendar to be kept precisely as possible, which is why they did a leap year every 4 years. Because of miscalculations and them mishandling the calendar after Julius was assassinated in 44 BC, the people in charge and the higher-ups that were supposed to keep charge of the calendar over the Roman government at the time fell from 4 years, keeping the leap years when they were supposed to keep it, to 3 years, which didn't keep the calendar aligned in place as they were supposed to, which is why when Augustus came into power and he became the emperor, he then had the calendar remodified again, naming July after Julius and August after himself, to reform the calendar once again to keep everything in place. So the leap year, what they decided to do in adding it is to keep everything locked in place. But again, because of it being a solar-based calendar and how inconsistent it is, and considering the fact that it's also 13 days behind on the Julian calendar, you can see how dysfunctional it is from within, because they had to keep remodifying everything again and again and again, doing so repeatedly to the point where stumbling upon everything that they were doing, it had to be revised again roughly 1,600 years later in the 16th century by Pope Gregory, coming in with the reformation of the Gregorian calendar, evolving from the Julian calendar. So again, from the beginning of this article, because it said that the days of the year would either be numbered to 377 to 378. You get rid of 12 to 13 days with the Julian calendar, bringing it down to 365. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because after they switched from the lunar-based calendar that they used to have going back to the 8th to the 7th century, now you have it that reforming it, revising it, and modifying it leads to more constant problems and inconsistencies that they're now having and still being troubled with within their calendars, which is why I'm presenting all this. Apaya, can you upload the first picture of the calendar up top so they can see what the Dundano market day Roman calendar is? You're going to see before the days of the week, Saturday, Sunday, so on and so forth, existed, what the calendar looked like in the ancient republic, in the ancient time, before, again, it was revised and modified. So as all of you can see, all of you see the letters A, B, C, and D, E, F, and H, so on and so forth. So this is what it looks like in color, and for all of you to see the lettering, I want all of you to understand, before the days of the week were in place, this is how they calculated it, and this is how it came into being, with the months of the year that corresponded to it. And remember, it was 8-day weeks. In the next article I'm going to have pulled up, I'm going to show all of you how, in the 8-day week cycle, how it looked to literally have 8-day weeks and how fast the months would go by. We know that the Lord said he would shorten the days because if he didn't, there would no flesh be saved. But literally in this time period, when they had 8-day weeks, a month would last literally about roughly no more than 24 to 25 days. So in the span of 3 weeks, we're in October now. Imagine this is the ancient time, over 2,000 years ago. Imagine we're in October now, and roughly in about 3 weeks, we'll be in November. Another 3 weeks will be in December. Imagine that if time is going by the way it is now, how fast time was moving because they were keeping 8-day weeks in their calendar. Abayat, pull up the other article so we can see a pre-Julian calendar from Antioch. All right, so this is a pre-Julian calendar from Antium, meaning from antiquity, going down. It said this inscription, sometimes called Fasti Antiets Maiores, is a rare example of a Roman calendar from before the introduction of the Julian calendar. Unlike a modern calendar, it does not number the days of the month, but it does have an 8-day week, Nundana, which are labeled from A to H. At the end of each month, it records the total number of days in the month. There are some standard abbreviations that occur throughout the calendar. We're not going to need to know the importance of that. But I want you to slowly scroll down, right? So all of you see, this is the month of January. So the numbers beside it, you see 5, 10, 15, and 20. These are the days of the month accordingly to this 8-day calendar. And as Apayaka scroll, I want you guys to know, look, 25th, 29 days in January. 29 days. They're doing this because the weeks are so shortened and how they have to calculate it. You can clearly and evidently see how shortchanged everything is because of the 8-day calendar that they have. Go ahead, Apayaka. Keep scrolling slowly. And all of you see Festival Lupercalia, Valentine's Day, 25th, 28 days in February. This is where the month would end in the old calendar. You see it's 25th. It's being calculated that way because it's corresponding with the old 8-day calendar with the Julian calendar. So the month would literally end on the 25th, but there would be 28 days in the Julian calendar. So that's why the 25th is right by what you guys see F here, business and assembly in February, but it has 28 days in February at the bottom. That would be the Julian calendar. But the 8-day Nundino calendar that we were just reading about, that's what this is covering and going over. Keep going, Lafayette. '25th, 30. All of you see that 31 days of March. '25th day, of course, 29 days in April. It just said 30 for the calendar that we looked at in the picture earlier. This will be the last one. And then 31 days in May. So my point in bringing this out is that in showing you this with the Nundino calendar that the Romans had, this is how shortchanged the days, the months were to being only roughly about 3 weeks. 3 weeks, and this time would be 21 days. So add 4 days, which would be 25, if not 24, and then afterwards you would be in the next month. So again, my point to showing this is that look how much has changed and has been revised constantly over and over and over and time again that has led to the mistakes of how we got this calendar that is based upon the revolutions of the earth around the sun that we have today, being the Gregorian calendar. Pull back up the article, Baba Kushar. We're going to keep reading. We're going to read the Julian calendar section. Are there any questions? Is everybody understanding so far what's being gone into? Can we get that in check and see? Panah. Is everyone following along? Does anyone have any questions so far with what we've covered and gone into? Remember, this is important so that we understand the calendar origins. And we understand where all this has been originated from and how everything came into being, was created in ancient time to where it's now being still followed today with the Gregorian calendar. Nothing has changed. All it did was just evolve. Again, nothing has changed. All it did was just evolve. Apaya, can you pull up the previous article? We're going to continue reading in that. All right. So we're going to be at Julian calendar here. Okay, Kawan's the only one paying attention. All praises. All right, so it says the Julian calendar was introduced in 46 BC by Julius Caesar and took force in 45 BC. It was chosen after consultation with the Alexandrian astronomer Sosigenes and was probably designed to approximate the tropical year, known at least since Hipparchus. It has a regular year of 365 days divided into 12 months, and the leap day is added to February every 4 years. Hence, the Julian year is on average 365.25 days long. The Julian calendar remained in use into the 20th century in some countries and is still used by many national Orthodox churches. However, too many leap days are added with respect to the astronomical seasons on this scheme. On average, the astronomical solstices and the equinoxes advance about 11 minutes per year against the Julian year, causing the calendar to gain a day about every 134 years. While Hipparchus and presumably Sosigenes were aware of this discrepancy, although not of its correct value, it was evidently felt to be of little importance. For those that can't see, it may be small. I am trying to read this as well. Excuse me, as I'm trying to read this, I will remember to send this out in the chat. Apaya, can you scroll down to lengths of the months? I'm going to read this portion before we close this out. So, lengths of the months. It says, according to the 13th century scholar Sacrobosco, oh, you're not there yet, so okay. lengths of the months. There we go. All right, it says, according to the 13th century scholar Sacrobosco, the original scheme for the months in the Julian calendar was very regular, alternately long and short. From January to December, the month lengths, according to Sacrobosco, for the Roman Republican calendar were 30, 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30, and 29, totaling 354 days. He then thought that Julius Caesar added 1 day to every month except February, a total of 11 more days, giving the year 365 days. A leap day could now be added to the extra short February, which would now be 31, 29, 30, 31, 30, 31, 30, 31, 30, 31, 30, and 30. So this is why, going back to Kaz's question earlier as to why February was given an extra day, or why February gains an extra day within the leap year. That actually was a leap year this year, 2024. And in your calendars, all of you can see February 29th. February 29th was on Thursday. So with that being said, these are the reformations to the lengths of the calendar days that Caesar reformed, and then Augustus changed it to 30, 28, 29 for a leap year, 31, 30, 31, 30, so on and so forth, continuing the same cycle. So it says, giving us the regular month lengths, which we still use today, so that the length of Augustus will not be shorter than, and therefore inferior to, the length of Julius. That's why July and August both have 31 days. All right, Ganan said, Khan, that's the answer to my leap year question. Kana. So this is what was installed and put in place. And you see how at the beginning, Julius had February at 29 days, 30 for a leap year. But Augustus, in his reformation of the Julian calendar, had 28 days and then reformed it to 29 days for a leap year. All right, so it says, although this theory is still widely repeated, it is certainly wrong. First, the wall painting of the Roman Republican calendar has survived, which confirms the literary accounts, and that the months were already irregular before Julius Caesar reformed it. Which hence, as of course, as you can see, it says 29, 28, 31, 29, 30, no, 31, 29, and the cycle repeats and continues. Also, the Julian reform that did not change the dates of the nuns and Ides. In particular, the Ides are late on the 15th rather than the 13th in March. May, July, and October, showing that these months always had 31 days in the Roman calendar, whereas Sacrobosco's theory requires that the length of October was changed. Do you get the rules? All right. So in conclusion, Apaya, can you pull back up the picture of the Julian calendar? Let's look at the Julian calendar one more time. I hope that everyone was able to see as to why having a solar predominant based calendar leads to fallibilities and leads to mistakes when it comes to calculations, when it comes to things being miscalculated, when it comes to things constantly needing to be revised over and over and over again. And all of you can see and understand why we follow and have a lunar-based calendar here within the School of Rome. So again, inside the Julian calendar, remember, according to slideshow I gave, the Julian calendar is 13 days behind the Gregorian calendar, which means again that if today's date is October 2nd, the Julian calendar has September 19th as its date in the Julian calendar. If we were still following the Julian calendar in today's time. So again, all of the months of the year, how much days they all contain, following all the way across from the 31-28 to the 31-30 cycle over and over again until you get 365 days complete within the solar calendar. That is the Julian calendar then, that has just been revised and modified into the Gregorian calendar now. Case in point of how irreparably pagan the calendar is with the months of the year and the days of the week, but also on behalf of the fact that they were both made and implemented by our oppressors who are Edomites. The Romans being firsthand, occupying Jerusalem within 63 BC, General Pompey entering Jerusalem. And then you also have 1582 during the period of the Inquisition that was very much taking place roughly 90 years after Columbus had set sail in 1492, and the Southern Kingdom being pulled off the west coast of Africa, known as also the Gold Coast, were being taken into slavery. So that all of you understand, both times that calendar implementations have happened was during our captivities. And during each one, we were made and forced to keep customs and keep this calendar or calendars that were not ours and did not belong to us. So what I'm going to do in the future classes, Apayak, we're good to take that down. What I'm going to do in the future classes is help everyone understand with the next class that's coming out, the days of the week, because we already did cover the months of the year. We need to understand and realize the origins of how Saturday and where this Saturday being the first and then becoming the 7th day origins come from. And how Constantine in 321 AD at the Council of Nicaea, how much was implemented and changed with the persecution of Israelites throughout the centuries after the death of Christ, how much changed. You know, we talk about persecution, we talk about how, you know, we were killed, we were martyred, but the one thing that was changed was a lot of the laws we kept and how much of the lunar calendar was eventually no longer being put into use to where we had to start following our oppressor's calendar, that being the solar calendar. So again, when it talked about how Rome was conquering and it took on conquering Eastern peoples, which would be in the Levant, which would be in the modern day Iraq, modern day Syria, which would be the Shemitic occupying peoples, Syria, you have Moab, Ammon, Edom, and of course the nation of Israel, were more based on keeping a lunar-based calendar up until the Roman occupation, which then changed everything, and now we're keeping the solar-based calendar that we originally did not keep. So this class covers part 2 of it, but the next class definitely will be extensive so that we are able to identify where this Friday to Saturday and Saturday Sunday relationship are evolving into to this modern day from where originally it comes from. It's not too deep into it, but to kind of correlate it to show how much has just been changed with it pertaining to the calendar, because it definitely is a part of it. So, with that being said, that covers this class for part 2 of this series, but the next class is definitely going to be extensive, and we will have some of the modern day holidays tied in so that we're able to understand and know where not only the Friday to Saturday lunar Sabbath doctrine, it's not lunar Sabbath, but the Friday to Saturday Sabbath doctrine comes from in its roots and origins, because it actually does come from ancient Roman custom and tradition of how they calculated their days. But also, also on behalf of that, to understand a lot of what time pertaining to Christmas and its origins and Saturnalia, where originally it comes from. And we're going to get into the depth of how much the Romans really worship these gods and how it still infiltrates into society today, especially pertaining to Christmas. So,
They were at their culture more than we do.
a lot.
I respect that.
New Year's.
That too. Remember the Roman god Janus, the two-headed god looking in the past and looking into the future. We covered that with the previous or prior class. In fact, Apayak, can you pull that up, the old slideshow? Let's run through that real quick. All right, real quick. Let's run through it. see if just get the refresher on the months of the year. Let's remind ourselves as to why we call the months of the year after numbers and not after the names that we do today, right? Remember, September, October, November, and December originally were in line and in place because the old calendar had 10 months, and the Romans just calculated winter roughly by a 2-month period, and when spring came again, that's when the quote-unquote month of March began. Oh, do I need to export it? Give me a second, Are there any questions anyone has in the chat? Or was you just joining us? Any questions? Were you listening in?
So the new year is according to like the lunar cycle, it's in March, right?
Corresponding March to April, which would be the first month. There's not the lunar calendar. There's not an exact date, but the month of Abib does occur within the month span of March to April. Hebrew test results coming tonight. Shortly after, we just get to these couple of slides real quick. Come on. Give it a second. AHLAHAYANAWA is just on Android timer right now. Gadal said, I think that's all everyone wants to know. But remember, tonight's class is based on the Julian calendar. I definitely would have let everyone know if I was doing the test review tonight. So the lunar calendar has how many months? The lunar calendar has 12 months. So how does this calendar work with the moons now? In what way are you asking that question, Shabal? We keep a lunar-based calendar. It's still exactly the same. We just don't say January, February, March. We say month 1, month 2, month 3, 4, 5, and 6, so on and so forth. And we say day 1, day 2, up until the 29th or 30th day, and then we proceed accordingly. So the lunar calendar has how many months? A leap year in the calendar would give us 13 months if it's the second Adar. If it's not the year of second Adar, then there's 12 months. All right, let's review this real quick. All right. Again, so January beginning, it says all the months of the calendar are pagan are pagan and idolatry related. Starting now with January instead of March because of the calendar being revised. January, which is the English for the Latin, Januarius, comes from the Roman god Janus. So Janus is a two-headed god. He looks back and he looks forward. Known and associated as the god of beginnings, endings, gates, transitions, times, doorways, and passages. This is why every year on social media you see people being cringe, talking about New Year, New Me, drink water and mind your business, all of the cringy things I know some of you have seen before, and they do it right before the end of the year. If you have any beef with me, settle it now before the new year comes.
You read those books?
No,
You see the people here with the same
Same niggas ain't talked to their parents for 16 years.
So you see people that have that notion, to have that mindset, love to use it for that time of year. January 1st now being the start of the new year, symbolized when said Happy New Year due to the reverence of this particular God receives every year, signifying 1 year ending and another year beginning. Next slide. February comes from Februus, is the ancient god of purifications, also similar to the Roman Februus, connected with something that needs to be purged, hence purification. Februus is a Roman goddess of fevers. Februus is also to honor the ancient Februa, hence Februalia. Februalia is the festival of washing and purification. Februus's month was February, in the Latin, Februarius again. The name given for the purification festival that took place on the 15th of that month. This festival also goes by another ancient name known as Lupercalia. Next slide. March. March comes from the Roman god Mars. In Latin, Martius is the god of war and agriculture. In Greek mythology, his equivalent was the Greek god Ares. Mars' festival at Rome occurred in the spring and fall. During the reign of Augustus Caesar, he became the personal guardian of the emperor in his role as avenger. His animal was the wolf, a symbol of Rome. A planet is named also after this deity. Next slide. April. The Latin for April is Aprilis, given by the Romans. The etymology stems from the Latin word apiere, which means to open, in allusion to the season of spring where the flowers bloom and open. The month has been more etymologically associated with the Greek goddess Aphrodite, who is associated with love. In comparison to the Romans, theirs was the goddess Venus, who was the goddess of love, sex, beauty, and fertility. Next slide. May. The month of May is named after the Roman goddess Maya, who oversaw the growth of plants, fertility, and spring. Maya was considered a nurturer and an earth goddess, explaining the connection of the springtime month. In short, it stands for Maya's menses, meaning Maya's month. Next slide. All right, July. July, before it was named that, was originally Quintilis, meaning fifth month, in Latin from the original Roman calendar. July came to be about being named after and in honor to Julius Caesar. He was a Roman general, statesman, and future dictator of Rome who was eventually assassinated. Due to this month being his birth month, the Roman Senate named it after Julius Caesar's death in 44 BC to honor him. It is now the 7th month in the Gregorian calendar. Next slide. August. In the original calendar, it was the Latin sextilis. It means 6th month, but now it is the 8th month of the Gregorian calendar. In 8 BC, the month name was changed to honor the first Roman emperor, Augustus Caesar. Augustus, coming from the same Latin word, means consecrated or venerable. And then the rest of the months of the year, September, October, November, December, all mean 7, 8, 9, and 10. Originally, they were in place before being taken out, and January and February being instituted within the calendar moved them all out of their place, which is why they are not out of order. The nun said, so it's 12 months then, okay, so how many days in each month? Just saying what separates the lunar from the Gregorian calendar. What separates the lunar from the Gregorian calendar is when the new moon comes in, and on that even that the new moon comes in, that sundown will be the beginning of the first month. So from the beginning of the first month at sundown, when the new moon comes in, that will be the first day of the month for us.
Isn't it 1, 8, 15, 20?
Yep. 1, 8, 15, 22, 29. We did have a double Sabbath, which means that the night that a previous Sabbath ends, the new moon comes in on the night or eve. The previous sundown ended and begins the new Sabbath cycle. So the previous Sabbath cycle was Monday sundown to Tuesday sundown. The new moon came in on Tuesday sundown. So from Tuesday sundown to Wednesday sundown, gives you the new moon Sabbath for this new month that we're now in, being October, which is the 8th month of the year, or excuse me, 10th month of the year in this Gregorian calendar, but 8th month for us, showing you that lining it up with the Gregorian calendar, you line it up from whenever the new moon falls and keep it accordingly up until when the next new moon comes in. Are there birthday horoscopes based on the gods' names and descriptions?
Okay.
I'm sure there is, but that's something that I don't even pay attention to because of how much it changes and how much it varies. Again, that's why I played the Kevin Samuels video with the woman. When she tried to say, I'm a Capricorn, so I have a big heart. I'm so tired of black people.
Sure, there are certain characteristics that you attain from being born during certain cycles of the sun, but that's something that we don't pay too much attention to. You know what I'm saying? Right. That's why the scriptures tell you not to go into witchcraft, sorcery, and live your life by those things, because there are witches, warlocks, wizards who actually pay attention to those things and live their lives by those things and cast spells by those things. So it tells us to refrain from those things for a reason, even though there is a little bit of truth to those things, numerology, all of that.
Conversation good. It was just as the brother explained, it can be a correlation, certain characteristics, things of that nature may correlate, but we don't deify or traditionalize it to the point where you have horoscopes and this person is this person is that, or they were born in this season, they're like this for a reason, they're like that for a reason. We don't subscribe to that. Oh, there we go. I pulled the video. Go ahead, I love this video.
Why is it so hard for you to behave?
Because I'm going to express myself. Like, if I feel like somebody trying to take control of, not even control, like take advantage of me, I'm a Capricorn, so I'm big-hearted. So if I feel like somebody,
I get so sick of black people with this zodiac shit. I'm a Capricorn. It's hard. All right. So what? Capricorn, it's hard. Well, then what are the alternatives? Buy a dog or a cat and die alone. Why is it so hard for you to behave?
Die alone is so crazy.
Oh, man. Wow. Love that. So the lunar calendar days are determined by the moon, so the days won't align. Will be the same as the Gregorian. Exactly. Yeah. And that's why we're in this organization, which is our job to uphold it and teach it. We make the lunar calendar align and line up with the Gregorian calendar. We don't make the Gregorian calendar line up with the lunar calendar. The lunar calendar is older. What we kept, and is far better than this constantly revised and modified solar calendar that never was since we were given the law of Moses, since the inception of the nation of Israel. And also to add to that point, it's important to note that God never gave us days of the week or months of the year attached with the gods or pagan gods of the other nations. That is all representing idolatry. And more importantly, nothing that venerates him with its creation. So it doesn't make sense that we would have in this calendar, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, so on and so forth in the months of the year, right, that are all venerating these pagan and gods of the Romans and Greeks, but do nothing to venerate and consecrate the Most High God that created everything. That doesn't make sense. So the lunar calendar, we hold to it and subscribe to it. We just have to make it match and align it with the Gregorian calendar. It doesn't work the other way around. The Gregorian calendar is a solar calendar based upon the alignment and the revolutions of the earth around the sun. The lunar calendar is just based upon when the new moon comes in, establishing the number of the month and establishing when the Sabbath is for that month, because you have to have a Sabbath every 7 days, 6 working days, every single month. And it goes accordingly, and the next new moon brings in the next new month and ends the previous one. It's hard to today because I love that video. All right. Test results. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 16. All right. I am the bar, GANAN, I am the bar. Sister Yaz, all praises. So for the test results, class last Wednesday was the Hebrew review before the test, and nearing the end of class, Yeshua was giving help and giving aid and helping everyone out on how they could make things easier for themselves when it comes to answering questions, when it comes to being able to recognize certain things within the Hebrew, and just tips on how to just really help yourself into what you know and then what you could use from there to be able to recognize certain things so that you won't stumble and trip up on reading certain things within the Hebrew. He was helping out towards the end of last Wednesday's class with that. And I sent out the test. I gave the deadline of Sunday, which gave everyone roughly Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 3 days time, which would be closing Sunday. That's roughly 4 days for everyone to complete and finish the test. We have to work on our diligence because I only had about 12 people finish it before Sunday came. Yeah. Which means that if I have to send out reminders after I've sent out a link for everyone to complete the test, at least with those that have completed it. Respectfully, so if you've studied and you paid attention, if you've listened in class, then you should be able to breeze through the test. For most of you, before I announce it, I gave instructions on the test before everyone started so that you specifically could understand and read for yourself as to what you need to do before answering the questions and submitting it. So with that being said, I'm not going to give the results, but I will give the overall preface of what happened because some brothers did need an extension, which is entirely understandable. They communicated. And some actually still have not taken it, despite it being announced last Wednesday.
It's a mandatory test that brothers have to take.
Hey, some of y'all here from SHAMI.
So the brothers that have the extension.
You got the list?
Yeah. So the brothers that have the extension, I'm excluding them, but particularly there's about still a handful that still have not completed the test, which is why I'm not going to give the results just yet, because I want everyone to complete it before all of it's given out. It'd be unfair to give the results and then those that have completed it, as some brothers did tonight, I'm not going to leave them on. So I'm still going to give time for brothers to finish and whoever else that has not taken it to finish, so that collectively together we're able to go into the test. I might make the review either for Friday or either for next Tuesday, sundown, the Sabbath, so that all of it can be reviewed together, and there may be a mini class and a review in itself with the entire camp based upon the results, because 16 brothers, 23 brothers have taken the test. 23 brothers have taken the test, 12 sisters took the test, which is 35 in total. I think I'm missing about roughly 6 or 7 people. 3 have taken it tonight. 16 brothers passed, 6 failed. 12 sisters passed and 1 sister failed.
Oh, shit. That's crazy.
Hey,
And I'm not going to lie to you. Some of the sisters scored higher than all the brothers.
Nah, this is tough.
So as to who passed and who failed, I'm not going to give that out. But 16 brothers passed, 6 failed. 11 sisters passed, and 1 failed.
Dude, war.
And yes, the sisters scored higher than a lot of the brothers.
That brother didn't even take the test. Talking all shit.
I will say this though. Sister Azaliah, you were the one that scored the highest on the test.
Oh shit. Congrats.
Sister Azaliah scored the highest on the test.
And they can't.
All praises.
That's second place.
Azaliah. Oh, Salaki, Azaliah, Salaki. I mean, if we're talking about Hebrew, I mean.
You said get her name
Sisters were smacking the brothers about tests. Every test.
Wow.
I
think it was
second place.
Every test.
Oh, yeah. Second place. Nah, she didn't. She studied out.
Serious test score.
Oh. Sister Azaliah got the highest score. Shout out to the sister that
That's in every test. All quiz.
Real spill.
The sisters outscored their brothers in every quiz.
Yeah, I think the last second Samuel test, sisters scored higher than most of the brothers. See, as men, you know we're supposed to be going out and teaching, and if we're heads of our household, then we have to teach our wives and children.
You get personal.
You getting real.
I mean, it's evident that when I see listen, the participation inside the classes lets me know who's engaged and who's paying attention and who's not. So you see that? She says, I really tried and I took my time too. That's exactly what one of the instructions was on the test. So I just have the last few that need to finish, and then afterwards I'll be able to finally go over who passed, who failed. Sister Azaliah scored the highest.
Azaliah pushing it. Don't push it.
Humility.
Congrats, buddy.
Yeah,
Just
it's crazy how every quiz.
that's what's up, though. I'm glad to her, man. I'm glad to her for doing that. That's what's up.
We're gonna see.
Every quiz they outscored their brothers.
We're gonna see if anybody who scored the highest of the men. Yashar, you actually did, man. Yashar taking the crown home for brothers, man, from Texas. Yashar got the highest of all the brothers.
yes, sir.
Yashar got the crown right now. Yashar and Sister Azaliah, they got the trophies.
I'm celebrating. That's the second time she put a shot in.
says I cheated, but I tried to use the red shell to slow down Sister AHLAHAYANAWA, but it didn't work.
It's spiny shell.
He was right there, man.
Well, what are you talking about?
Can we at least get our score? Nope. We gotta wait for everyone to finish. Gotta give the names to the brother Shamak. That way everybody else can take it and we're good to go.
Hey, whoever don't take the test on time, man.
I should take points off because it was 4 whole days that everybody should have been completed.
Usually that is what happens.
You gotta take points off how many days.
In a college setting, school setting, if you're late to take the test after the grace period, you could only score like if it was a possible 100 you could get. It starts going low. It's like 90 or 80.
If I did that, they only got about 4 to 5 questions to get wrong and it's a fail. I'm trying to give grace and they don't. That's why I said, dang. You know, it's 1 question and this 5. No, Yeshaya gave grace and said 4. If I did 5, there'd probably be a lot more failures.
They even beating us in the doctrine classes too. They
More
score
of a
high.
serious
They
one.
score high in the doctrine classes. They score high in the doctrine classes. Yeah, my sisters. I don't understand.
Crazy words.
It teaches
Crazy word.
Yo, they're going to the quarterbacks to teach.
Crazy.
Higher habits.
Nobody don't care.
Just text me that list when you get the shit.
We are in trouble.
Sisters by the teacher camp.
School with each day is like knocked out 5%. You're trying to give grace here. That's why I wanted to give the time so that way all of you would be able to catch up with all the classes and then take the test afterwards. I sent the link out that night for those who are ready, but you didn't have to take it that night. Just prepare yourselves and then when you're ready, take the test.
4 days, 4 questions.
Was it really 4 questions?
No, it was 4 points off for each question. If it was 5 points off, it would have been much more difficult and a lot more people would have been failing.
Do we have 25 questions?
Just about. But again, I'll leave the instructions at the beginning of the test. Those of you that were able to catch the curveballs, there was some curveballs in the test. Hey, man. So again, we just have those few to get. Some brothers were given grace to given an extension to have completed it. So once they finish,
As you about to get timed up.
Once they finish, I definitely do want to be able to go over all of it with you guys so that we're able to review it together and all of you guys are able to catch up and see what the mistakes were, what needs to be worked on, what needs to be fixed, so on and so forth. So again, so far, to let all of you know, Yashar, Sister AHLAHAYANAWA both passed for brothers and sisters with the highest scores.
Congrats.
All praises.
Hello.
We getting back into Hebrew card now, so. I can't wait to do that.
Praises. Instead of handing out sheets upside down.
If this was school, a lot of you would have been getting handed the paper just like this. You know how the teacher folds it and hands you upside down? All right. So with that being said, that concludes this class. And definitely we will be going into the results together. Again, it's just those last few that have to complete it, which is why I announced it previously. I like to let everyone know ahead, and then everyone is able to be on par as one in unison, and we're all able to collectively keep it all together. That's why I say in class, ask your questions. Again, Yeshaya had the dialogue and build with everyone last Wednesday before we closed out, and he was doing so to give everyone tips and advice on studying and being able to memorize the Hebrew and making it easier for yourself. So again, that was the point of interacting and the participation that's needed within all the classes. With that being said, Ahmad Mapani Makudam. This is Psalm chapter 119. This is Yad. Thy hands have made me and fashioned me. Give me understanding that I may learn thy commandments. They that fear thee will be glad when they see me, because I have hope in thy word. I know, O Lord, that thy judgments are right, and that thou in faithfulness hast afflicted me. Let, I pray thee, thy merciful kindness be for my comfort, according to thy word unto thy servant. Let thy tender mercies come unto me, that I may live, for thy law is my delight. Let the proud be ashamed, for they dealt perversely with me without a cause. But I will meditate in thy precepts. Let those that fear thee turn thee unto me, and those that have known thy testimonies. Let my heart be sound in thy statutes, that I be not ashamed. In the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, YHWH, the water from Yad, Amen.
Abadja Shabbat, Abadja, Barak, Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Barakatah.
Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Barakatah.